Welcome to Fear Machine, where the shadows of the unknown are brought to life, and every story dares you to face the darkness within. Tonight, we dive into 4 terrifying tales, each one pulling you into a world where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Have you ever wondered what secrets are buried beneath ancient cities, waiting for the wrong hands to unearth them? In Whispers in the Catacombs, the forgotten tunnels hold more than bones. They guard a sleeping terror that should never be disturbed. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and one wrong step could awaken a deity hungry for sacrifice. Or perhaps you've heard the chilling legend of the Silent Carnival, a place that appears in the dead of night, promising to grant your deepest desire. But every deal comes at a price. For one desperate mother, the cost of happiness may be her soul, or something even more precious. In What of the Lighthouse Keeper's Curse, a century-old beacon stands alone on a desolate island, its lantern extinguished, but its foghorn still echoing through the night. A marine archaeologist uncovers the secrets of a man who traded his sanity for an ancient power, but the curse he unleashed refuses to die with him. Finally, we venture into the unsettling reality of abandoned places with the eternal carnival. Here, the veil between the living and the damned grows thin. The spirits of the past beckon you, and their whispers carry warnings you can't ignore. These stories will take you to the edge of reason and beyond. So, are you brave enough to listen? The Fear Machine is running, and tonight, it's taking you to the darkest corners of your imagination. Story 1. The Forgotten Asylum. The story opens with a vivid portrayal of the asylum, shrouded in fog and wrapped in a suffocating silence that seems to press on the ears of anyone who dares venture too close. This isn't just a building, it feels sentient. The rusting gates creak open, not like the invitation of abandonment, but as though the asylum is pulling them in, hungry for new visitors. The architecture itself tells a story. Shattered windows stare like hollow eyes, ivy crawling up the decayed facade like veins, while the remnants of once bright, hopeful murals inside clash grotesquely with the peeling paint and the faint smell of mildew. These details immediately set the tone, establishing that this isn't just an ordinary abandoned place. It's a trap. The group of urban explorers is diverse in their personalities, yet each carries a secret vulnerability that the asylum is poised to exploit. The skeptical protagonist, perhaps a young journalist named Claire, dismisses the folklore surrounding the asylum. Her practical nature contrasts with the thrill-seeking arrogance of her friend Daniel, the quiet anxiety of Megan, and the macabre curiosity of Kyle, the group's self-proclaimed historian. Their interplay not only builds the tension, but humanizes them, making their descent into madness all the more harrowing. As they delve deeper into the asylum, the strange discoveries begin innocuously, a dusty, patient ledger that falls open to a list of names scratched out in red ink, and cryptic carvings in the walls that resemble intricate runes. These small details are unsettling, but they also pique the explorer's curiosity, driving them deeper into the decaying halls. The flickering beams of their flashlights catch glimpses of shadows that vanish when looked at directly. A faint weeping sound begins to echo down the hallways, too distant to pinpoint, yet unmistakably human. Then comes the discovery of the treatment wing. It's not on any blueprint they've found, and its location doesn't align with the asylum structure. The heavy metal doors are rusted shut, but claw marks gouged deep into the steel suggest that someone, or something, tried desperately to escape. When they force it open, the temperature drops. Inside, the walls are lined with restraints, old and rusted, still holding the skeletal remains of those who were trapped. A large, circular chamber in the center is covered with more of the strange carvings they saw earlier, but now the symbols pulse faintly, as if alive. As they move further, the group starts to exhibit strange symptoms. Daniel complains of splitting headaches, hearing a voice calling his name that no one else hears. Megan finds her fingers trembling uncontrollably, unable to hold her camera steady. Kyle becomes increasingly erratic, muttering about deciphering the patterns, his eyes darting wildly over the carvings. Claire, though still skeptical, begins to notice that the asylum's layout seems to shift subtly, hallways appearing where there were none before and doors closing without a sound. The deeper they go, the more apparent it becomes that the asylum doesn't want them to leave. The group's unity fractures as the asylum plays on their fears and secrets. Daniel wanders off, chasing the voice that beckons him into the darkness, only to find a room filled with patient photographs. Every photograph is identical, a smiling man in a hospital gown, until he sees himself in one of the frames. The smile begins to twist, becoming something grotesque. His screams echo down the hallways, but fail to reach the others. Megan's trembling worsens, her hands now bleeding as she compulsively scratches at her own skin, mirroring the carvings on the walls. She becomes convinced that the asylum is speaking through her, using her hands to communicate. Her descent is visceral and horrifying, made worse when she begins carving the symbols into her own arms in a desperate attempt to finish a message that only she can see. Kyle, lost in his obsession with the asylum's history, stumbles into a hidden archive. He discovers journals from the asylum's director detailing a horrific experiment, an attempt to bind the souls of patients into the asylum itself, creating an eternal source of energy. But the ritual was never completed. The asylum has been lying dormant, waiting for new victims to finish what was started. By the time Claire realizes what's happening, it's too late. The group is scattered, and the asylum has begun to feed. She stumbles upon Megan, now unresponsive, her eyes staring blankly as she continues carving into the floor. Daniel is nowhere to be found, but a series of fresh photographs scattered on the ground show him wandering the halls aimlessly, followed by shadowy figures. Kyle, wild-eyed and babbling, reveals that the asylum's ritual requires a final sacrifice, one who willingly stays. In the climax, Claire confronts the truth. The asylum is alive, sustained by the souls it traps. Its carvings are sigils of containment, designed to imprison the living and siphon their essence. When she tries to escape, the hallways warp and stretch endlessly, leading her back to the central chamber. There, she sees the faces of her friends, their images flickering in and out of the walls, pleading with her to join us. The asylum has chosen her to finish the ritual, promising her freedom if she complies. But Claire understands a lie. It doesn't let anyone leave. In her final act of defiance, she tries to destroy the sigils, but the walls close in around her, and the story ends with her screams echoing into silence. Story 2. The Lighthouse Keeper's Curse. The story unfolds on a desolate island, its rugged cliffs battered by relentless waves. The lighthouse stands tall, weathered but defiant, its glass panes fractured, casting reflections that dance like ghostly figures in the dim sunlight. The air is thick with salt, and a constant, eerie silence hangs over the island, broken only by the distant crash of waves. From the moment the archaeologists step foot on the island, an unnatural chill seeps into their bones, as though the island itself is warning them to leave. The protagonist, Dr. Evelyn Carter, is a seasoned marine archaeologist with a reputation for uncovering hidden histories. Accompanied by her team, Paul, the skeptical historian, Sarah, the eager grad student, and Marcus, the practical logistics expert, she views the island as another intriguing puzzle to solve. The locals' warnings about the curse are dismissed as superstitious folklore, but Evelyn's curiosity is piqued by the lighthouse's grim reputation and the cryptic phrase associated with its final transmission: "Do not light the lantern, it sees through the flame." As the team explores the island, they discover a small keeper's cabin near the lighthouse, its interior preserved as though time itself had frozen. Dust-covered shelves hold logbooks, and the faint smell of seawater lingers. Among the artifacts is a worn leather diary, its pages warped from moisture, but still legible. The diary belonged to the last lighthouse keeper, William Hargrove, who had lived and died there nearly a century ago. Through fragmented entries, the team pieces together Hargrove's descent into madness. His writings begin as mundane records of ship passages, but gradually shift to descriptions of strange phenomena: lights beneath the waves, whispers in the wind, and the discovery of a peculiar artifact, a stone idol carved with eldritch symbols, buried in the sand near the lighthouse. Hargrove became obsessed with the idol, convinced it was a relic of an ancient maritime civilization. He describes how he placed it in the lantern room, believing it would enhance the light's reach. But soon after, ships began to wreck, their crews vanishing without a trace. The diary's final entries are barely coherent. Hargrove warns of something watching through the flame and pleads with anyone who finds the diary to destroy the lantern. The last words are scrawled in frantic, uneven handwriting. The light is not ours. It belongs to it. Do not light the lantern. As the team continues their investigation, strange occurrences escalate. The foghorn, rusted and long inoperable, begins to sound in the dead of night. The noise is low and mournful, reverberating across the island like a dirge. Paul dismisses it as the wind, but Sarah insists she hears faint voices in the sound, crying for help. The group grows uneasy, their rational explanations faltering as the phenomena intensify. Visions plague the team. Marcus sees ghostly sailors standing ankle-deep in the ocean at low tide, their hollow eyes fixed on the lighthouse. Sarah, while cataloging artifacts in the cabin, glimpses a figure in the corner of her eye, an emaciated man with a lantern clutched to his chest. Evelyn finds herself drawn to the lighthouse, unable to resist its pull, as if an invisible force is guiding her toward the lantern room. Inside the lighthouse, the air feels heavier, oppressive. The stairs groan under their weight as they ascend. The lantern room is eerily pristine, the ancient stone idol still sitting where Hargrove left it, its surface etched with runes that seem to shift and writhe when observed too long. Evelyn touches the idol and is overwhelmed by a vision, a massive eye, glowing with an otherworldly light, staring at her from beneath the ocean surface. The idol's influence begins to fracture the team's sanity. Marcus becomes paranoid, convinced the others are hiding something from him. Sarah insists she can hear the cries of drowning sailors growing louder each night. Paul, desperate to leave, tries to repair their boat, only to discover that the engine has been inexplicably corroded, as though the salt water had aged it by decades in mere hours. Evelyn, however, cannot shake the feeling that the idol is calling to her, promising answers to the mystery of the lighthouse. As their isolation deepens, so does the lighthouse's grip. Evelyn begins to dream of the ocean swallowing her alive, its cold depths filled with writhing figures, their faces blank but familiar. One night, the foghorn sounds again, louder than ever, and the team witnesses an impossible sight. A ship materializing out of the fog, its sails tattered, its deck empty. The ship crashes into the rocks below, splintering into nothingness. It becomes clear that the island is not merely cursed. It is a beacon for the damned, drawing ships and souls to their doom. In the story's climax, Evelyn and her team attempt to escape the island, but the artifact exerts its final, unrelenting influence. Evelyn finds herself back in the lantern room, the idol glowing faintly in the darkness. Its whispers are deafening now, urging her to light the lantern and release its power. The team tries to stop her, but the lighthouse itself seems to turn against them. Doors slam shut, the stairs collapse, and the walls echo with the cries of the drowned. Evelyn's hand trembles as she holds a match, torn between the artifact's seductive pull and the desperate pleas of her friends. But as she lights the lantern, the curse takes hold. The flame roars to life, casting a light so blinding it pierces through the fog, reaching the horizon. Evelyn sees her reflection in the glass, but it is not her. It is William Hargrove, his face twisted in torment. The light burns brighter, consuming her. The final moments are a cacophony of screams, the foghorn blaring one last mournful note as the light fades to darkness. Evelyn's soul is trapped, her voice joining the chorus of the damned, while the lighthouse waits, patient and eternal, for its next visitors. Story 3. The Silent Carnival. The story's eerie tone is established with the roadside encounter that introduces the carnival. As the mother, Rachel, drives down an empty highway at dusk, her daughter, Lily, sleeps in the back seat. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of tires on asphalt. Then, a billboard looms out of the darkness, its surface oddly pristine despite the surrounding decay. The painted letters glow faintly, as if lit from within. The Silent Carnival, one night only. Discover your heart's desire. The billboard shouldn't exist. Rachel passed this stretch of road the previous day, and there was no sign of it. Despite her unease, exhaustion and curiosity compel her to follow the directions. This sets the stage for the carnival's unsettling, otherworldly nature, something born not of reality, but of longing, sorrow, and despair. The Silent Carnival materializes out of the mist, an amalgamation of light and shadow. Strings of flickering bulbs cast fractured light over rusted rides, cracked mirrors, and faded tints. There's an odd beauty to the place, a siren's call of nostalgia and wonder. But beneath the surface lies an unmistakable sense of decay and menace. As Rachel and Lily approach, they notice that the air feels heavier, charged with static. A sign at the entrance reads, "Enter and claim your heart's desire. But beware, the price is always paid." Despite the warning, Rachel steps inside, clutching her daughter's hand. The temptation is too great. Rachel's heart is burdened with sorrow, her husband's recent death leaving her emotionally shattered and financially strained. She is a mother desperate for hope, willing to believe in the impossible if it promises to lift her from despair. Inside the carnival, Rachel finds herself navigating a series of surreal and increasingly horrifying attractions, each tailored to prey on her deepest fears and desires. These attractions seem alive, as though the carnival itself is testing her resolve. In one tent, she is drawn to a hall of mirrors. At first, the reflections are distorted, humorous even, but as she ventures deeper, the images become unsettling. Rachel sees herself as a widow forever clutching Lily's hand, her face lined with sorrow. In another mirror, she is radiant, joyful, her husband alive beside her. A voice whispers from the glass, "All of this can be yours. Just one small trade." In another attraction, Lily is drawn to a carousel. The horses move on their own, their carved faces twisted into grotesque grins. As the carousel spins, Rachel sees flashes of Lily's life, her first steps, her laughter, her growing older. But the images begin to blur, darkening with each rotation. Lily's innocent laughter morphs into haunting cries for help, and Rachel pulls her daughter away before the ride can complete its cycle. These surreal moments blend terror with temptation, heightening Rachel's internal conflict. The carnival seems to know her every thought, every weakness, and exploits them with precision. The performers, meanwhile, watch from the shadows, clowns with hollow eyes, acrobats whose movements defy anatomy, and a ringmaster who never speaks but smiles too widely. As the night progresses, Rachel begins to uncover the carnival's dark secret. In a moment of clarity, she discovers an old ledger hidden in the fortune teller's tent. It lists the names of past visitors, each accompanied by a description of their desire and what they lost in return. Many of the names are crossed out, with the word cursed scrawled beside them. Through fragmented encounters with the performers, Rachel pieces together the carnival's origin. It is run by the souls of those who once sought to cheat its bargains. Each performer was once like her, desperate, broken, willing to risk everything for fleeting happiness. When they failed to honor their end of the deal, the carnival claimed them, trapping their spirits in eternal servitude. The performer's torment is palpable. The tightrope walker moves with mechanical precision, her face a frozen mask of anguish. The strongman's muscles ripple unnaturally as he lifts weights far beyond human capability, his eyes glassy and unseeing. They are prisoners of their desires, bound to the carnival's will. The carnival's interest in Lily becomes overt as the night deepens. The performers circle closer, their hollow eyes fixed on the child. Rachel realizes the carnival's true intent. It does not want her sorrow. It wants Lily's innocence, the purest form of something precious. Desperate, Rachel tries to escape, but the carnival seems to twist and reshape itself, the paths looping endlessly back to the central tent. The ringmaster finally reveals himself, his smile predatory and cold. He offers Rachel a choice: trade her life for Lily's freedom, or lose Lily forever. In a moment of heartbreaking resolve, Rachel agrees to the trade, believing her sacrifice will save her daughter. But the carnival's bargains are never straightforward. As the lanterns flicker and the fog rolls in, Lily vanishes, her laughter echoing faintly in the distance. Rachel's relief turns to horror as she realizes the truth. She has become part of the carnival, her soul now bound to its eternal purgatory. Rachel's transformation is immediate. Her reflection in the cracked mirrors shows her face painted as a clown, her eyes hollow and lifeless. The carnival swallows her scream, its lights dimming as it prepares to move on to the next town, ready to ensnare more souls. Story 4. Whispers in the Catacombs. The story begins with the historian, Dr. Eleanor Voss, receiving an anonymous letter that delivers both a warning and an invitation. What lies beneath must remain undisturbed. Yet if you must know, follow the map and find the truth. The parchment is aged, the ink faded, but the map it contains is detailed, leading to a sealed-off entrance to the city's long-forgotten catacombs. This premise immediately sets up Eleanor as a character driven by a dangerous curiosity. Her determination to uncover the past is fueled by a personal obsession, perhaps the loss of a mentor who vanished years ago while investigating the same tunnels, or her need to prove herself in a field dominated by skeptics. Whatever her reasons, her decision to ignore the warning and gather a team reflects the classic fatal flaw of hubris, the belief that knowledge is worth any price. The team consists of a skeptical archaeologist, a tech-savvy spelunker, and a local guide with a superstitious reluctance to descend too deeply. The dynamics among them provide opportunities for tension, humor, and conflict, but the catacombs quickly become the central character of the story. The setting is oppressive, a claustrophobic maze of narrow tunnels and endless shadows. The flickering light of their headlamps reveals walls covered in cryptic symbols, spirals, jagged lines, and crude depictions of human figures kneeling before a monstrous, indistinct form. As they delve deeper, the sounds of the city above fade, replaced by something far more unsettling. Faint whispers that seem to come from all directions, rising and falling like a chorus of disembodied voices. The local guide, unnerved, insists they turn back, but Eleanor presses on, her obsession blinding her to the mounting dread around them. The team stumbles upon a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with murals that tell the story of an ancient cult. The artwork depicts sacrifices made to a forgotten deity, its form deliberately obscured, as if the mere act of rendering it would invite ruin. One mural shows the cultists sealing the deity within the catacombs, the final act of a ritual designed to prevent its awakening. Scattered across the floor are remnants of past explorers, broken tools, torn backpacks, and bones that bear the unmistakable marks of ritualistic carving. Eleanor's excitement is palpable. She believes she's on the verge of a historic breakthrough. But the archaeologist, interpreting the murals, warns that their presence may already have disturbed something meant to remain undisturbed. The guide, meanwhile, notices fresh footprints among the dust, suggesting they are not alone. The whispers grow louder, more distinct, forming words that seem to echo in the minds of each character, tailored to their fears and regrets. The team soon realizes they are being hunted by the catacombs guardians, spectral apparitions with glowing eyes and ethereal forms that flicker like dying embers. These spirits are not mindless but deliberate, enforcing the will of the deity they once served. Each team member is confronted by their own personal demons, the apparitions using memories and guilt as weapons. The archaeologist, who once falsified findings to secure funding, is lured into a side tunnel by a spectral child's voice accusing him of betrayal. The spelunker, haunted by a climbing accident that claimed her partner's life, sees ghostly hands reaching for her, pulling her into the abyss. One by one, they are taken, their fates sealed as they succumb to their own psychological vulnerabilities. Eleanor, now alone, reaches the heart of the catacombs, a cavernous chamber where the air is thick with an unnatural stillness. In the center stands an altar, upon which rests an ancient artifact, a jagged stone tablet carved with the same cryptic symbols that cover the walls. The whispers crescendo, now unmistakably urging her to complete the ritual. Eleanor is confronted by the final truth. The cult's ritual was never completed. The whispers emanating from the artifact reveal the stakes. The deity has slumbered for centuries, but the disturbance caused by Eleanor's team has begun to awaken it. The only way to prevent it from consuming the city, and perhaps the world, is to finish the ritual, which requires a sacrifice. The choice is simple but devastating. Offer her own life to seal the deity's prison, or walk away and unleash unspeakable destruction. This moment is Eleanor's ultimate test. The artifact seems to pulse in her hands, its power seductive, offering her a glimpse of the recognition and legacy she has always craved. But the cost is steep, her life in exchange for the safety of countless others. The voices of her lost team echo in the chamber, urging her to act, their spectral forms appearing one last time to bear silent witness to her decision. Whispers in the Catacombs is a story about the cost of obsession and the weight of responsibility. Eleanor's journey is both physical and psychological, her descent into the catacombs mirroring her descent into the darker corners of her own ambition. The catacombs themselves are a metaphor for forbidden knowledge, a place where curiosity becomes a curse and the past refuses to stay buried. The guardians of the catacombs serve as a chilling reminder that some secrets are guarded not to protect the truth, but to protect those who seek it. The story's climax forces Eleanor and the audience to confront the uncomfortable truth that some sacrifices are necessary, even when they demand everything. You've reached the end of tonight's journey, but the darkness isn't done with you yet. In the catacombs, the whispers remain, calling to those bold or foolish enough to listen. The lighthouse stands silent, its curse waiting to claim another. The carnival may vanish with the sunrise, but its promises linger, tempting the desperate to trade their souls. These stories remind us that some places are better left undiscovered, some deals are better left unmade, and some mysteries should stay buried. Yet, the allure of the unknown pulls us back, over and over again, daring us to venture deeper. But remember, the fear machine never stops. It's always here, waiting to unveil the next story, the next nightmare, the next shadow lurking just out of sight. Are you ready to face it? Until next time, keep your lights on and your courage close, because the fear machine will return.